Welcome to the Lovecars On The Grid podcast, your global motorsport roundup with me, Tiffany Dell and Paul Woodman.
Welcome to Lovecars. What are we, Tiff? What is this? Episode 18.
We're coming of age today.
Legal, 18 years of age. 18th episode of On The Grid, the global motorsport roundup. And I think you all know what we're going to be discussing. It was quite some weekend, which we'll come into in a moment, at Silverstone, World Sportscars, World Rally, and lots of other bits and pieces. But first, Tiff, it was quite interesting, actually, Silverstone, for a number of different reasons. But they tried the Friday qualifying, they tried the sprint race, and you, of course, were there as well. So
I think it worked so. I mean, the crowd obviously was fantastic. The weather was fantastic, and qualifying. I mean, it gives each day now a highlight to go and watch. Before you had the qualifying on the Saturday, which was quite good for the Saturday visitors, but now the Friday viewers, the grandstands were packed. I don't know what the deal was. Maybe it was 3 grandstands on the Friday. I'm not sure anyway, but. When first Russell got into the top 10, they were going, but you could hear the crowd, and then, of course, when Lewis got pole, and that should be pole. Those idiots, the FIA, who will also come to later, those idiots, the FIA. No, I mean, the pole position has always been about the guy that's fastest over one lap with no fuel, light tanks, softest tyres. That's what pole's all about.
So you think
not the winner of the sprint race.
Really? Okay, well, that's interesting, because I actually thought that sprint race was quite interesting to define who's on pole.
But
to define who's on pole. I do think
it's a method.
It should be half the amount of laps and make it a proper little sprint, and then it would be much more pole position-ish.
Half the number of laps. No, you've got to have a bit of a race.
Yeah, but then the problem is in this modern game that you say a bit of a race, but then as soon as the pack start, as soon as a few laps have gone, the pack seems to that caterpillar no longer becomes a caterpillar.
But that's the problem with the current cars. They can't overtake very well. So if we move into next year's cars, which we've all seen this model that they produced the weekend, with rumours from manufacturers saying, well, our car doesn't look anything like that. With those huge front wings, which I'd hope we get rid of, but if they make drivers able to drive closer, then I'm happy with the looks of the thing. Because the other thing, actually, right through the Grand Prix itself, Silverstone is still it's a spectacular track to watch Grand Prix cars go around.
It's lovely.
There's no overtaking. Yeah. There's no overtaking. The Alonso train was there in the sprint race after he made such a great effort on the first 2 or 3 corners. And the whole Grand Prix, he just had a queue of cars behind him and nobody could overtake. And so, which is why, obviously, when you get to the incident, any chance to overtake is something very rare at Silverstone. So
hang on, let's go back to this pole position, and because what about Sergio Perez then? So he made an error. He made a mistake in the sprint race. So do you think he should have still maintained his position ready for
No. I completely agree. The sprint result forms the Grand Prix grid. Oh, yeah, I'm not changing that at all.
Right.
In the record books, pole man, when because it's always number of poles is another important thing. Sorry, yes. No, don't change it for the Grand Prix, no. No, but the guy fastest on the Friday is the guy that should go to the history books as being the pole position man for that weekend.
Yeah, I'm with you. Absolutely, 100%. I'm getting a call.
Of course, George then fell back. George was one of the casualties of the sprint race, and he did run out of brakes and clobber Perez off. So I think that was a penalty that someone had to give.
I think everybody
which put George back.
Everybody was looking forward to George getting the announcement about with Mercedes as well. Everybody seemed to think it was going to come, and
I might have said something about that last week on this podcast. So okay, go. So that didn't happen. So but George, once again, just to go on to the race, and we'll move George out of the picture, because again, he doesn't seem to have good opening laps in the Grand Prix. Okay, he was dumped to 12th by the penalty. But then he dropped about 15th or 16th on the opening laps. He's not, this great Saturday man, George, but he's got to somehow up his activities, I think, in the races. Same with Sergio Perez again. Okay, knocked off, but he hadn't qualified well anyway. And Sergio had another poor weekend again, unable to overtake anyone virtually until he put some fresh tyres on at the end and got past a few. But
because those straights aren't. I mean, well, you know, I've actually driven the track and raced the track, amazing. But those straights, for those cars, they're there at the end of the straight so quickly, and you almost need another sort of 50, 70 meters or so to get that overtake move done safely. Which
the problem is that I point out when I criticised the design of the circuit when it came out because they put too many squiggles in. You know, this was the dreaded, you know, what's his name design problem. He always puts too many bloody corners in. Because that Beckett's bypass is icon, amazing series of corners where they go in flat to the left and the right, and it goes left and then it right. It actually, the whole corner decelerates the cars. And of course, with 4 corners, you can't stay close. So when you start the DRS hangar straight, you've lost 2 or 3 car lengths because you can't follow through that amazing sequence of corners.
Yeah.
The same, the other DRS zone, which is the forget what they call that straight, down to Brooklands Corner. But again, it's preceded the Wellington Straight. But that's preceded by right, a hairpin left, a left-hand kink. So once again, you know, you lose 2 car lengths getting into the DRS bit. So by the time you get there, you go.
Hang on, we're talking Wellington Straight or Hamilton Straight?
Both straights. Hamilton, the Hamilton Straight has no DRS.
Yeah.
So it's a badly designed circuit extension, which as a BIDC member and owner of the club, I was always a bit fed up with, but someone came in with it. So we've still now got to sort the cars out. But then the Grand Prix itself. And
wow. I got a few messages saying, was that you driving? But
the point is, I mean, now that you are a racing driver, Paul, you and me can chat racing. I mean, even your caterer, right? When you approach Cops Corner, how much of that apex, that little curb, can you see? Hardly anything. There's a barrier on your right.
Yeah.
So you only actually see the apex when you're about beginning to turn in. It's almost a blind turn in. So it's incredibly hard. I expect you probably missed the apex all on your own on several occasions because you're learning the track. And come on, you probably did. Yeah. But I've done it, you know.
Yeah.
But this outcry that's gone on, because I've tweeted today that it goes back to Austria when the FIA, someone in the FIA has written this perfect rule book where you must always leave a car width of room. So they had those 3 penalties, you know, 1 for Norris and 2 for Perez in Austria, because they had to decide whose fault it was. So the rule book says that now. So they had to penalise someone. So we've now started this thing that every clash, someone's got to be at fault.
Why can't it just be racing?
No, you can't have racing incidents anymore. This is the whole problem.
Ridiculous.
So they had to penalise someone. But, you know, in the sprint race, I mean, Verstappen was weaving down the straight in the sprint race. Alonso was doing it. I mean, that's
so aggressive. He's so aggressive.
But Alonso should have done it. Someone with Alonso's prestige, he shouldn't have done that childish weaving, you know. I mean, okay, you're going to get DRS if you don't weave, but you shouldn't be allowed to do those many changes of side. But no, I mean, you know, Verstappen was very aggressive defending on those first 3 or 4 corners, and you know, then Lewis is well alongside him. You know, Max knows he's there. And I've had many occasions over my entire racing career, which is a bit longer than yours, when I've gone round the outside of someone and you breathe in because you know that although you've gone past them, you can't see them anymore. You are often waiting for that little bump, you know. I tweeted a picture of me on Twitter to the Goodwood meeting.
Your Twitter's gone crazy, by the way. And if you don't follow Tiff on Twitter, you need to have a look at his Twitter.
But there's a brilliant photo. I was in a Lotus 40 in the Wex, and I'd gone around the outside. I was 7th on the grid. I was leading after the first corner. I just did the last bloke towards the exit of the corner. Yeah, he's committed to the corner. It was wet, so he slid wide and tapped me. You know, I get on the grass and I lost 4 places and came back to have a great race to finish 3rd. But you know, it was just racing, and the whole thing that people don't seem to understand is that Max was defending with Lewis. So Lewis was still thinking of overtaking him on the run to Maggots. There's still another opportunity on the opening lap. So Lewis is going to brake as little as possible coming into that apex. He's on the inside. He knows he's got to brake more than Max. And Max is also thinking, I've got to get a good exit here. Otherwise, Lewis will overtake me on the run up to Maggots. You saw later in the race when Leclerc...
It was so easy I was just going to say, it's so easy to run wide there.
Leclerc bailed out, So Leclerc bailed out. Yeah. Then, of course, Lewis had the drive-by. Now, that's what Max didn't want Lewis to get.
Yeah.
So Max is thinking, I'm going to give him as little room as possible. Because if I run wide here, he's going to have the inside line for run up to Maggots. And Lewis is thinking, I'm going to brake as little as possible because I want to keep my speed up so I can get him on the run to Baggett's.
Yep.
So they've both got these racing brains going. You know, they're the world's best drivers. And they're both working on the tiniest of margins. You know, they went around a couple of corners on the opening lap, you know, just almost touching wheels.
It's incredible.
So they're racing. They're both thinking ahead of the next straight. One's wanting to limit the other and the other's wanting to limit. And sadly, they touched, you know. And obviously it was very spectacular because it was such a high speed off. And, you know, these Twitter people saying, you know, how can you praise Lewis who sent Max to hospital? It's a dangerous game, motorsport. I know it's so much safer than it's been, you know, 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's still dangerous, but both those two drivers knew what the game is all about. They knew how high the stakes are. And if you try to make a rule book, make a decision out of that instant, you're just going to shoot yourself in the head, you know, because the FIS, oh, someone must be to blame. And then I think, what did they say? It was 66% Lewis and 40% Max. And actually the FIA tribunal said because he didn't get the apex, as if you always got the apex on every lap, you know, doing 170 miles an hour. I mean, no, Lewis mixed the apex. He was offline, Lewis. He turned in on the inside of the road. Yeah. You know, it was very unlikely he would make the apex. Yeah. And, you know, Max knew that. So Max thought, well, how much room could I give him? And, you know, well, Max was trying to make him break more so he would lead up to back. I mean, it's just so much racing going on.
It's racing. That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, it's racing. And you know, I'm an absolute amateur, obviously, but it happens. It happens. You don't want to give too much away, but likewise, if someone's there for me, I leave the door. I've done it many times. It's documented on our videos with people like Fred, who we're very similar speed. If he comes down the inside and it's sort of 50-50, I don't want to, or he's a little bit behind me, I don't want to.
Maybe I wasn't as successful racing driver as I could have been, because I did occasionally leave a bit of extra room, and maybe I did get overtaken on the way out of a corner, because I've not wanted to be hit. Yeah, you know. Same. So, you know, if I'd closed doors, you know, like Senna would barge doors and shut people's faces, and Max has closed the door on people. I know.
And I don't like, I really don't like, and I can speak firsthand about this. Actually, one of the things I can speak very confidently about is the horrible, I know it's emotions, but all the stuff you read afterwards, you know, what you hear from Christian Horner and from Max and from
I know, very disappointed with the way the teams are all on the phone to the FIA.
It's awful. I don't like that. And then they publicly tweet about it and say things, and he's disgraceful and this, that, and the other. No, it's not. It was a racing incident. And yes, you know, they're both on the limit, but they're both incredibly talented, fantastic to watch. And the longer that continues, the better. But it makes it a lot. It looks very interesting now. 8 points difference now. So it's
but I mean, the atmosphere when I didn't think Lewis would get Leclerc. I mean, it was the most stunning atmosphere at Silverstone with the people cheering him on. You know, it only came down to 8 seconds, 7 seconds, but he was only taking a third of a second a lap, and he got down to 5 seconds, like 4 laps to go. And I thought he's not going to do it. But I think Leclerc must have hit a brick wall with his tyres. And look, the speed, you know, speed he left Bottas by after Bottas had let him pass, you know, same car, same tyres, you know. It was just electrifying, the speed Lewis was doing.
How does Lewis Hamilton get so much stick? How does it? He is a phenomenon. He's
absolutely
one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest. Yes, he's got a great car. All the greatest, most successful drivers had a great car. But who else was out there to mention? So, of course, Charles Leclerc, who must have thought it was going to be.
I was so absorbed in the race, I didn't notice anyone else at the end. Lando had a lonely ride, you know. Ricciardo had a reasonable run, but he was still about 40 seconds behind Lando in the same car. Wow. He, of course, had Sainz stuck behind him, and Sainz couldn't get by in the Ferrari. So, as I said, there was so little overtaking. You know, they had then Alonso. When Alonso finished about 7th, didn't he? With his queue behind in the Alonso train. So that was disappointing, the fact there were so many processional bunches, you know, groups. You know, I mean, after he spun, Sebastian Vettel couldn't get past Latifi in a Williams, you know, and you see them just following. And so that, hopefully these new regulations are going to work. But Silverstone maybe should chop up a bit of the track, in my opinion, but we can't afford it, BRDC member.
Yeah, fastest pit stop Williams, 2.1 seconds. So,
I'm glad you've brought that into conversation. That was important. We'd have missed that. The whole podcast wouldn't have been, you know, the same without that. But so please, everybody, stop. And these photos on Twitter, you pick the picture that suits you. Look, he's closing on me. Well, no, it's a whole corner And not just the corner, it's what's going to happen after the corner. That's what's going through those drivers' heads.
And isn't it funny because you saw, and we mentioned this last week, you saw on an iPhone a picture of what happened with my racing incident, and I said, no, that's not what happened. You said, whoa, you look quite aggressive there. No, that's not what happened. And then when you see it again, and you got to understand the stewards are looking from multiple angles, and I guess most of those angles we do see as well, but you know, it's often 6-1, half dozen. That's why I think there should be racing incidents in Formula 1. But there you go. Where are we going next here? Because that was...
Well, the support races. I mean, great weekend again. You know, the Formula 2 races, they were a bit iffy. You know, who did we have winning the F2 race? We had the reverse grid sprints were won by the Robert Schwartzman and Richard Vishaw. The feature race on the Sunday, Guangzhou Zhao, the Chinese... You know, he's I think he's an Alpine protege, I think he's a junior, you know, but he's in it for about 4 years now, or 3 years, and he did win quite easily. But Dan Ticktum had a solid weekend, finished second for Britain, so a good one for Dan. The W Series, great. We had a little British flag winning. Alice Powell won again. Jamie Chadwick second.
That was a really exciting race, I thought. I thought that a little bit...
Well, Volheim, it was a shame for Volheim, the Liechtenstein driver, because she had it under control until the pace car came out. And then under pressure, she cracked under pressure. But at least I was hoping for an all-British podium, but Volheim sorted that out. And the other 4 Brits were actually from, 7th down to 10th. So all 6 in the top 10 waving the flag. And the special mention to Abby Pulling, who finished 8th. She hasn't done any racing in that series. She's a Formula 4 racer. No, Pulling.
Abby Pulling, sorry.
She was the one, she had a one-off outing, just beat Abby Eaton, which probably upset Abby Eaton. But but the best support race at 9:30 on the Sunday morning with the grandstands empty.
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
GT Marston. It was there were these 2 Cobras. And just touching, banging, opposite lock, sliding, blocking, weaving, with John Spears in my TVR following in 4th. He finished up 3rd in the end because the leaders clashed at the end at Stowe, and a bit of an incident which spun the leader out. And of course, Andrew Jordan was in the car that spun him. So absolutely blitz for a race. It was so spectacular. If only all those corporate guests that at that time were sitting in the bars drinking their champagne, and you know, why don't they get out once they've got there, watch that race, because it was so entertaining. It really was. Absolutely. So GT boys.
Lots of the slower cars are entertaining because there is overtaking, and the lead
we had on Lotus Elan's or little classes,
brilliant.
You know, Porsches, every type of car in it. So yes,
absolutely brilliant. And Vicky Piria, you know, I think she seems quite pleased in a way with what she's doing. She knows she's got a bit more pace, but she's sticking in there with W Series as well. So WEC World Endurance Championship.
Yes, World Endurance Sports Cars. I still can't get excited about it because we haven't got enough hypercars yet. And the whole grid full of MP2s that all look alike sort of don't really do it for me. However, Toyota... And also, I get a bit bored because Toyota win everything. But this time, they only one car finished. A lot of troubles with their second car. And in fact, the lead car had some problems and almost didn't win. But finally, Toyota won with British driver Mike Conway as part of the crew, along with the Japanese boy Kobayashi and the Mexican Spanish Lopez. But briefly, when they had some problems, the Glickenhaus led a couple of laps or more.
So
the Glickenhaus was much more on pace. Yeah. So they finished 4th in the end. The Alpine was 2nd. And 3rd overall was actually the LMP2 winner, which had the Brit Philip Hansen as part of the crew. So well done, Philip. Got the flag going. So Monza.
You're not salivating about the thought.
No, and the same with the World Rally Championship. These series, they've got so few people that can win. The World Rally Championship is either Toyota or Hyundai because Ford aren't on the pace. And again, the rally was Estonia, which I'm not sure they've had a rally Estonia before. Yeah. But it was very dusty and loose. The championship leaders have to start first and clear the dust. So the whole rally out front was all about Kalle Rovenpera, this 20-year-old for, he's Hyundai, isn't he? Let's get the two right. I always forget who's in which one. He's Toyota. Get the two mixed up. And our own Craig Breed, Ireland's Craig Breed in Hyundai. So because they don't do every rally and haven't got many points, they started at the back of the manufacturer's pack of 9, so had the best track. So, you know, if you're an outsider looking in, you're thinking, well, why is this 20-year-old beating 7-time world champion Sebastian Ogier,
so what's the
championship
solution?
leader?
What's the solution?
I don't know.
Who goes first?
They've had qualified once. Yeah, they did try, on the practice stage, they did do qualifying, but then they got bored because someone like Ogier or Seb Loeb just won every rally because they could then pick their starting position. So you had your qualifying stage, and then you pick where you wanted to go, whether it was tarmac or loose or whatever. So they have tried different formats. But you'd have 3 days with the two least known names battling for the rally, and the stars at the back. It's just a hard thing to get over to the public, I think. I mean, it's such a spectacular sport. Oh. Who was it? Tanak, again, the quickest driver. He had passes. Yeah, skill. Not Tanak, probably the most talented guy at the moment. He's having punches every rally. He's dropping back. He's going off. And even poor old, where are we? What's his name? We finished third in the end. I've written it down somewhere here. Lost all my notes. Thierry Neuville, who finished third, who was the best Hyundai. He got caught speeding at 190 kilometres an hour in a 90-kilometre public area, which of course is so against the rule. He was late for a stage, and when I used to the Rally GB, it happens so often. You get a queue of traffic, and the rally cars, but of course then the rally fans are all waving you past. So he's been given a 1 rally ban. So that's probably a new record. So Rovenpera gets the record as the youngest ever world rally winner. I'm
not endorsing his speed, but I'm laughing at your story about British
rally cars. Yeah. But Ogier finished. Ogier managed to hold off teammate Elfyn Evans for 4th and 5th. That was the biggest battle because it's the championship. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
So Ogier finishing 4th extended his championship lead over Elfyn Evans. So the Ford, Timu Tsunoda was back in the Ford, finished 6th. Our own Gus Greensmith had lots of troubles with his Toyota. And Takamoto Katsuda, his poor co-driver, Dan Barrett's got some neck problems. I mean, they do take a pounding in those cars. And I think the poor old co-driver that's reading
looking
his
down
notes.
As well.
Yeah, you can't see the big bumps coming and brace yourself. So sadly, he had to pull out for that reason. So, yeah, I don't know what to do about World Endurance Championship when, Porsche and Ferrari and Audi, everybody's coming into that in the next 2 or 3 years. It is going to be great again. But for the moment, it's next stop is Le Mans, I think, isn't it, for them? Because all these dates are upside down. I think it is next stop is Le Mans in August. NASCAR was a great race. We got home on Sunday night, had enough racing. I always try to get people to watch it. And this was one. They always watch the boring ones, people. So I tried that. It's dead boring.
Yeah,
but the New Hampshire, it's a 1 mile oval with hardly any banking. So it's different. That's the thing about NASCAR. Every track's got different. And this is just too wide. The racing went on and on for the lead. I mean, just 4, 5, 6 laps of just underneath tacking the back end, trying to get half alongside and tacking out. It was an amazing event. Although Kyle Busch didn't think it was. Kyle Busch is this controversial character, says what he thinks and doesn't hold back. But they have no qualifying or practice till most of these NASCAR races for just a COVID thing. They're just doing it. They just turn up at a track, roll out on the grid and race.
Amazing.
And poor old Kyle, it was drizzling with rain. And then it rained harder. They didn't get the yellow flags out quick enough. And in the lead, Bush on lap 3 or 4 just hit water. They'd just lost him, slammed the wall, hobbled back to his pit. So he went all the way up to New Hampshire, did 3 laps, destroyed his car, said a few words that he shouldn't have said about the organisation, and went home again.
What did he say? What savoury words?
Actually, he did. To be fair, he did actually say, "I can't answer that because I think I'm in trouble." He's quite a character. But through it all, Ford's came good. Ford haven't won a race since April the 25th. They haven't won a race for about 12 races, I don't think. And Eric Almirola, a very popular character, came through the win in his Ford. 5 Fords in the top 6. In fact, the only Toyota was second with young Bell. And the first Chevrolet home was, of course...
number 5, by any chance?
How did you guess that? So the best of the rest in the Chevrolets was Kyle Larson. But it's actually... They have this playoff system, which also builds up. I like it. Some people don't like it. So there's about 4 rounds to go. And the top 16 go to the playoffs. And then you knock out 4, then the 12 go forward. You knock out 4 and 8 go forward. The last race, only 4 people can then win the championship. It's literally a shootout at the last race for the top 4 that go through this knockout stage. But you'll get into the last 16 if you win a race. With Almirola, he was well down the points. There's now, I think, 12 or 13 that have won a race. So there's now 3 spots left, and it's on a points decision now. So it's lots of drama in NASCAR.
It's all
you
kicking
see.
off.
They build it up. It's so. But even they've got a holiday next weekend because there's nothing on next weekend, hardly.
Well, we've got
NASCAR's got
Formula
2
E next weekend.
Of course.
At
How can
Excel
I
Centre.
forget that? No.
Have you seen the track? For those of you that haven't seen the track, it's a bit wacky. It's a bit weird. Have you seen it, Tiff?
I saw the original layout, but the layout apparently has been changed recently due to this controversy, which I again tweeted about. So I was positive about Formula E last week. Because Sam Bird won. That's why it's great, because Sam Bird's one of the best drivers in Formula E, and he's never won the championship. He's won many races, and he should win the championship. But he's now leading the championship, so he has to go out in the first group of 4 for qualifying. The first group get the dusty circuit. So the chances of Sam Bird, our great British championship leader, a bit like the rallying, with a loose track, I don't think he'll be in the top 10 on the grid, maybe not even the top 15 on the grid, when all the British fans go to cheer him on. But the circuit, I didn't know this. The computers that actually control the drivers and tell them how fast to go worked out. Apparently, they like each normal Formula E race. They have to recharge 30 to 35% of their energy. They must recharge, otherwise they won't be able to do the 45-minute race. 45 is whatever. But apparently, the Excel track, which goes inside the Excel Centre and outside again, it's quite interesting. Not around the streets of London, let's point out, but somewhere out in the east of London. But apparently their track would only need 5% recharging, which meant the drivers could now attack and race and not have to worry about saving that much energy. Then apparently the drivers said, well, some of them, well, that must mean we'll all crash into each other. If you let us have a race, we'll all crash. Because they'll all be actually racing. So I was criticised for me, saying they're not racing. They're all just going round and round conserving energy. And now they've admitted it to the public. And the FIA actually said in their statement that management of energy is a key to avoid flat-out racing. So they're admitting they don't want flat-out racing.
What's the definition of racing in the dictionary? Surely it is to go flat-out. Or
they appear to want it to be the driver that can conserve his energy the best.
Rubbish. Absolute load of cod's wallet,
so
if you ask me.
I might never mention it. I know, again, I don't know what to do.
There's a bit of motorcycling.
Go to the Excel. Go to the Excel. Have a look.
Yeah, let us know.
We want you all to let us know on the next week's podcast what you thought. Anyone that's going to the Excel, let us know. Did you really enjoy it? Was it exciting?
And we don't want the influencers telling us, because they just whoever's giving them the champagne.
They're paid. They're paid. You see JWWWW. He did a great, fantastic race. And at the beginning, doesn't he say ambassador to Formula E? He has to admit that it's actually a paid YouTuber.
The world is a strange place now. It really is. You never know what's true, what's not true, but it's
anyway.
Let the boys
hardly anything else going. British GTs are going to Spa if Belgium's not flooded out. I don't know what the damn it. That was horrendous, wasn't it? Over in Germany and Belgium.
Awful.
Those floods. But the best thing to do this weekend, if you want some motorsport, is to go to Brands Hatch for the British Superbikes, because they are awesome. Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. You walk around it. The atmosphere will be fantastic. There are some thunderstorms apparently forecast for this weekend, which might make it a bit too exciting. But go to Brands Hatch. Have a wonderful time with the Superbikes this weekend.
You heard it here.
Record Formula E on the telly and watch it and see if you enjoy it. See if it excites you. Anything like that atmosphere of Lewis Hamilton. I was almost in tears when that was building up. The crowd, the whole 140,000 egging him on. Yeah, I was just electrified. That's what motor racing should be about, emotion. And
was that one of the most emotional things you've seen in your career of spectating?
Yeah, it was.
Brilliant.
I mean, people winning Grand Prix, dreamers winning big events. I mean, I get emotional. When I win a race, I'm pumped up, and there's almost even I'm winning races now historic. There's a tear in my, it's what you want to do. Winning is what it's all about,
Of course it is. Sadly, I haven't come close to that.
How many have you got left to try now? Brands Hatch, a couple of weeks. Croft.
you know what? I need a replacement for Croft. I don't think I could do Croft. So maybe if Harry's around, maybe we can convince him. Harry is, for those who don't know, Harry is one of Tiff's 3 sons. And he's
the reserve driver, official reserve driver for Lovecars.
He's a brilliant driver. But he doesn't drive very much. So to be, he's on the pace without even practicing or driving. So maybe, hopefully he'll come out of retirement for that. And then the final one is Snetterton in October. October in Snetterton. So Snetterton is...
How many races? Only 2 more races? Or a double headers at any of those or not?
Double header at Snetterton and Brands Hatch. So Brands, then Croft, then double header at Snetterton. So 4 races.
So 4 races to get that elusive podium.
Yeah. Well, I don't just want a podium.
Of course, if you're in the white group, you would have won every race. But no.
Cut. See you next week.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.